If you practice Feng Shui for a living, you probably know this feeling. A client invites you into a home, an office, or a shop. They may be excited, they may be skeptical. Sometimes they are carrying a worry they have not told anyone else. They are not only asking where to place a desk or how to read a facing direction, they are asking, in one way or another, can I trust you with this part of my life? That question matters more than any impressive formula. Feng Shui has traveled a long way. It began in a world where choosing land meant reading mountains, water, wind, sunlight, seasons, and safety. Over time, practitioners developed different lineages and methods. Form School, Compass School, 8 Mansions, Flying Stars, and Xuan Kong all grew from particular histories, teachers, and ways of seeing. Today, our consultations happen in apartment towers, suburban homes, retail spaces, clinics, hotels, and digital offices. We work across cultures. One client may see Feng Shui as part of a family tradition. Another may approach it as a design language. Someone else may be curious but cautious because of their religious beliefs. And some clients simply want a space that feels calmer, clearer, and easier to use. That range is not a threat to the practice. It is the reality of practicing in the modern world. The real question is this: how do we carry the depth of the tradition into that world without losing integrity? For me, professional standards are not about making every school agree. They are not about turning one lineage into the official answer. They are not about asking practitioners to abandon intuition, symbolism, or spiritual meaning. Standards are about something more basic. They are about how we treat people when they place their trust in us. Think about the moment when a client is anxious. Maybe business has been slow. Maybe there has been conflict at home. Maybe they have been through a bereavement, a divorce, or a health scare. In that moment, our words carry extra weight. A careless sentence can stay in someone's mind for years. If we say, "This room will cause illness," or "Unless you buy this cure, your family will suffer," we are no longer offering guidance. We are using fear to take control of a vulnerable person. Whatever school we follow, that cannot be the standard of a respected profession. A responsible practitioner can talk about concern without turning it into a threat. We can say, "This layout may feel exposed," or "I would pay attention to rest, privacy, and the way people move through this space." We can explain what comes from traditional theory, what comes from direct observation, and what is simply our professional judgment. That small change in language protects the client. It also protects the dignity of Feng Shui. The same is true of promises. No practitioner can guarantee a marriage, a promotion, a pregnancy, a cure, or a financial return. A space can support habits and choices. It can influence comfort, attention, privacy, movement, and mood. Traditional methods may also offer a symbolic or energetic reading that is meaningful to the client. But a consultation should never replace medical care, legal advice, financial planning, structural engineering, or mental health support. Knowing where our role ends is not weakness, it is professional maturity. There is another part of modern practice that deserves more attention: consent. When we enter a home, we may see family photographs, religious objects, medication, financial papers, children's rooms, or signs of private conflict. A floor plan is not just a diagram, it is a map of someone's personal life. Before taking photographs, recording measurements, sharing a case with students, or posting a dramatic before and after story, we should ask permission, real permission. Not a vague line hidden in a form. The client should know what will be used, where it will appear, and whether identifying details will be removed. Confidentiality is not an optional courtesy. It is part of the trust we are paid to hold. Cultural and religious respect matters just as much. A Christian client may not want an altar-like arrangement. A Muslim family may have particular needs around prayer, modesty, and images. A Jewish household, a Hindu household, a secular household, or an indigenous community may each understand sacred space in a different way. We do not serve people well by assuming that every client shares our symbols or beliefs. Good practice begins by asking, what is meaningful to you? What would feel uncomfortable? Are there objects, rituals, or rooms I should treat with particular care? Feng Shui should meet the client where they are, should not ask them to betray their conscience. Then there is the technical work itself. Every serious practitioner knows that a method is more than a list of lucky objects. A Lu Opan reading, a site observation, a floor plan, timing, landform, light, noise, access, and the people using the space all belong to the picture. Yet our industry is full of advice stripped of context. One direction is always lucky, one color always attracts wealth, one object fixes every problem. It is easy to sell certainty. It is much harder to practice well. Professional practice means documenting what we observed, which method we used, what assumptions we made, and why we recommended a change. It means distinguishing a safety issue from a symbolic preference. It means saying, "I don't know," when we do not know. And it means being willing to revisit a case after the client has lived with the changes. That last part is important. We should not only collect success stories, we should also study the consultations that did not work as expected. Was the reading incomplete? Did the recommendation ignore budget or family dynamics? Did the client understand the advice differently from the way it was intended? Did a beautiful theory fail in a real complicated space? If we can discuss those cases without humiliation, the whole profession becomes stronger. This is where a credible professional association can help, not as a gatekeeper that declares one master or one lineage superior, but as a shared table where practitioners can compare methods, review ethics, improve training, and protect the public. An association should make its standards visible. Fees should be transparent. Complaints should have a fair process. Credentials should show what was actually studied and assessed, not simply what was purchased. Teachers should be able to explain how students are supervised. Practitioners should have access to continuing education because the spaces and communities we serve keep changing. And yes, there should be room for disagreement. Feng Shui has never been one voice. Different schools may read the same building differently. Professionalism does not require us to erase those differences. It asks us to describe them honestly. We can say, "In my lineage, this is how we understand it," instead of pretending that every practitioner in the world would reach the same conclusion. That honesty builds trust. It also helps us speak with architects, designers, planners, researchers, and other professionals without overstating our claims. We do not need to borrow scientific language to make Feng Shui sound respectable. When something can be measured, we can measure it. When something belongs to tradition, symbolism, or lived experience, we can name it that way. Clear language is more convincing than borrowed certainty. None of this makes the work cold or mechanical. In fact, it brings us back to the human center of the practice. Most clients will not remember every calculation we made. They will remember whether we listened. They will remember whether they felt judged. They will remember whether our advice gave them more agency or made them more afraid. That is the quiet test of professional Feng Shui. After we leave, does the client feel more able to live in their space or more dependent on us? The best consultations do not create dependence. They help people notice their environment, make thoughtful choices, and take ownership of what happens next. For practitioners, this can be a difficult standard. Many of us inherited language from teachers we deeply respect. Some of that language came from another time, another community, or another relationship between teacher and client. Adapting it can feel like disloyalty. But a living tradition has always adapted. The buildings changed, the cities changed, family structures changed, technology changed. The way people understand privacy, belief, authority, and professional responsibility changed too. If our practice is alive, our ethics must be alive with it. So where does Feng Shui go from here? Not toward a single global rulebook, not toward a fight between believers and skeptics, and not toward a polished certificate that hides weak training. It moves forward through practitioners who are skilled enough to be precise, humble enough to keep learning, and grounded enough to put the client's well-being before their own authority. It moves forward when we can protect lineage without using secrecy as a sales tool, when we can honor mystery without manufacturing fear, when we can speak about qi, form, direction, and timing while still respecting consent, evidence, safety, and personal belief. It moves forward when experienced practitioners share not only what worked, but what they had to rethink. If you are already doing this work, you are part of that future. Maybe the next step is to write down your scope of practice. Maybe it is to review your consent form, your privacy policy, or the way you describe risk. Maybe it is to call a trusted colleague and talk honestly about a difficult case. Maybe it is simply to remove one sentence from your consultation language that creates fear instead of clarity. Small changes matter. They become habits. Habits become culture, and culture becomes the reputation of a profession. Feng Shui does not need louder claims, it needs deeper trust. That trust will not come from asking the public to believe more. It will come from giving people good reasons to feel safe in our care. That is how an old practice finds a responsible future. And that future is something we build together.